The Japanese Grand Prix is come and gone, the Sakuras are past, and we probably got our best race so far of the 2024 season. Guys, welcome back to Racing Direct. We're going to jump into all the important parts of what I feel is probably the best race of the season so far. So make sure you've hit subscribe, like, comment, and share. It really helps, guys. Let's dive right into it. So yeah, at the front, it wasn't much of a fight again, unfortunately. It was another Red Bull masterclass, a 1-2 for Verstappen and Perez. Completely untouchable at Suzuka. Of course, it's Honda's home track. You know they're going to show up. You knew it was going to be a walk in the park for them. But it was still pretty mind-blowing just how much faster they were than everybody else. Heard so many drivers from the likes of Lewis Hamilton, his teammate George Russell as well, the Ferraris, also commenting on just how much faster the Red Bulls were. They had no answer for them. It was complete and utter dominance. But behind them, there were so many good battles going on and a lot of different strategies, which made for some really exciting overtaking on a track where many people say, hey, overtaking is very hard. There's only one DRS zone on this track. But the drivers proved that yes, old school circuits are king and they are still awesome and still fun. And we actually got a pretty exciting race behind the two Red Bulls. Carlos Sainz proved to be the best of the rest, again doing his absolute very best to make Ferrari really regret their decision to drop him for 2025. But his teammate Charles Leclerc did have a good race, recovering from a pretty rough qualifying session to get back up to P4. Very good strategies from Ferrari. We haven't heard that very much in recent times. On the other hand, McLaren's strategies, man, they really backfired. Norris's was just completely bizarre. Leaving him on such a short stint on those hard tires really set him up for failure in the last stint of the Grand Prix. He even commented before he came into the pits that they were just pitting him way too early, and he knew those extra sets at the end were not going to go the distance, and it showed. The tires were completely falling off towards the end. Things didn't work out for Oscar Piastri either. We saw him struggling on his tires as well. Ultimately had that big lockup that cost him that extra position to George Russell towards the end too. So yeah, McLaren, they definitely need some work on their strategies. Those are really burning them early in this season. Could be a lot better. Yes, they're having a good start to the season. However, things could definitely be a lot better if they work out those issues. Because as you saw just in front of him, Leclerc was on very worn tires and was really struggling. Norris had every opportunity to pounce on that, get some extra laps in, and get some distance between him and the Ferrari, but McLaren decided to go the other way, and it just didn't pay off. Elsewhere down the field, Yuki Tsunoda was looking very racy. It was so awesome to see him get a points finish at his home Grand Prix. Tsunoda, along with many other drivers, made some very exciting overtakes in places where you don't always see them. I mean, we actually saw around the outside overtakes through the S's in the first sector, which was just so awesome. Again, we really have all the different strategies to thank for that. Of course, we saw a couple of drivers, likes of Lance Stroll, jumping on those soft tires towards the end to try and gun down those final point scoring positions, and it made for some interesting battling. And on the topic of those strategies, we did of course see that great end of the race battle between Alonso, Russell, and Piastri. It was mainly between Piastri and Russell. Alonso was holding them at bay in that Aston Martin, doing what he does best and just driving the wheels off of his car, really outperforming that Aston Martin, I'd say. Or maybe Lance Stroll is just completely underperforming. We don't really know, but Fernando Alonso did a great job behind him. That battle between Piastri and Russell was fantastic. Came right down to the end. Of course, we almost saw a Prost and Senna-like accident between Russell and Piastri in the final chicane. Russell was pretty ambitious up the inside, but Piastri did a great job avoiding the incident. No penalties given. It was just good, hard-fought racing. Very old-school style battling. It was great to see. Unfortunately for Piastri, he made that one little mistake with the lockup, and it did cost him the position to Russell. At the start of the race, though, obviously, everyone at Williams was so concerned with the crash involving Alex Albon and Daniel Ricciardo. Now, obviously, it's very tight through the S's in Suzuka, and especially in the first lap when everyone's battling for position, we almost always see a safety car or red flag at the start, just because there's a lot of cars and not too much room to go. And in this case, Ricciardo was looking left to where Lance Stroll was. He was not looking right where Albon had a huge jump on him, and eventually they both kind of collided, took each other out right into the barriers. Of course, the first thing on everyone's mind, though, is the Williams chassis issue. They're already in a bit of a debacle. Of course, we all know that Logan Sargent is driving a fixed, repaired chassis that Albon crashed last race in Australia. Now he's driving that, and we saw him have his FP1 crash as well, where the car basically just didn't even look like it was turning. A wheel is fully cranked. The car is not going anywhere. Just a bad time for Williams, and this Albon crash was the last thing that they needed. Now, they did say they should be able to fix it for China, so there isn't really an issue there. However, they just cannot afford to have any more accidents because they're in such a terrible state. Honestly, really embarrassing for them though, and they just have to get things worked out immediately. I will say though, this was probably one of the best races I've seen from Logan Sargent. He was honestly looking very, very good, actually battling with drivers, making some very good overtakes as well. It looked like he had actually built up some confidence, which is pretty insane because he was driving, like I said, a broken or repaired chassis, you might say. And most people, including myself, just assumed it'd be a write-off weekend for him. But hey, he actually proved many people wrong, and he did a very good job with broken tools that his team gave him until, of course, obviously he made that mistake towards the end, the second Degna, that really put a dark patch on what should have been a very good race for him. Very unfortunate, but up until that point, kudos to Logan Sargent. He was actually looking pretty good and a nice improvement. But two teams that obviously stood out for all the wrong reasons to me. One was Mercedes. That car just still is nowhere near it should be. I believe between now and 4 years ago, the total points they had after 4 races, there's like a 100-point difference. It was just awful. The car just cannot handle very well. The Mercedes engine looks like it's down on power compared to the likes of the Honda and the Ferrari. Times are just really tough. I mean, when was the last time we actually heard Lewis Hamilton willingly offer to give up his position to his teammate because the strategies were terrible, the car was not working to the way he liked it? It just was not a good time for either Hamilton or Russell. Yes, Russell ultimately had a pretty decent race, beat Hamilton again, but that's still not where Mercedes want to be. The other one, of course, was Alpine. My goodness, it is just laughable how bad that car is right now. Every single team and every single car was blowing by them down the front straightaway. We saw Logan Sargent and the Williams just absolutely obliterating the likes of Pierre Gasly. And anytime Alpine would actually gain positions through pit stops, whoever was coming out of the pit lane would likely just gap them a lap later on the front straightaway, and they would catch them through the S's and all the tight corners as well. The car looks absolutely dreadful. We even heard Esteban Ocon's engineer at one point during the race telling him it's time to push. Esteban informed his engineer that, "What are you talking about? I am pushing. This is just how bad the car is." And of course, Ocon was also celebrating getting out of Q1. Just a shocking state of affairs for Alpine. That car, that team is a complete and utter disaster. So much mismanagement has led to this point. Honestly, I'm not too surprised, but my goodness, they really have to figure things out. They are the tractor of 2024. But yes, guys, that is pretty much everything I believe that stood out to me at Suzuka. Again, this is probably my favorite race of the season so far, just because we actually got some great on-track action for pretty much the entire duration of the race, which we can't really say that about the first 3 races so far. Yes, again, a huge congratulations, and just another masterclass for Red Bull. You've got to tip your cap to them. Sure, it's not always the funnest thing in the world to watch Max Verstappen just drive off into the sunset, but you've got to recognize when a team and a driver is just doing great things, and that's what's going on right now. But yes, guys, let me know what you thought about the Japanese Grand Prix. Do you think it was the best one we've had so far? Do you think Australia was better? I know you won't say Bahrain and Saudi Arabia was, because let's be honest, those 2 races just weren't too great. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, I'll remind you to hit subscribe, like, comment, and share. See you next time on Racing Direct.